We both know how these things start. I show you something in the middle, something interesting, some action, something to hook your interest. Then I ask, how did we end up in this situation? Oh my god, there's so many questions. And once your interest is piqued, I do what we all know is coming. A flashback. Something leading up to everything. So let's do that. Let's start at the beginning.
Fuck. The pharmaceutical cocktail I put together vibrates at the back of my skull. Shifts my system into overdrive. I could take anything but a tank shot to the chest right now, but that comes with a cost. My body's going to give it out at some point. And it's going to hurt. One-way trip. I picture the pills in the bag with the pills and taking the pills in the bag with... It feels inevitable. A Nickelodeon on a loop. Courtesy of an addict's chemistry. I'm the addict, by the way. Hi. Max is Dracula, Lord of the Vampires. 15 miles from here, in a tiny motel in El Paso, Texas, she's conducting a ritual that will end the world as we know it. It's what she always wanted, even when she said she didn't. If I don't save the people she's taken or kill the things she's conjuring from the void as we speak, the world dies today. I threw away 6 months and 11 days of being sober for a chance to save the world. 98% of me is screaming in pain or exultation, glad for an excuse to fall. And the last tiny fraction, that's you. I need you to believe that I'm not going to open that trunk, that I'm going to get back into this car on the count of 3 and stop my ex before she destroys us all. I need to know that you believe, so I can too. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Well, my name is James Savage. Here's to believing.
James was your average supernatural investigator, an addict in recovery type of guy. Just like anyone else, he'd put on his pants one leg at a time. And he kept plenty of wooden stakes in the trunk of his car. Vampires are crafty, and you never know where you'd encounter one of them. He used to keep bottles of pills in his car too, but not now. He once thought he was a happy man, but he doesn't think that anymore. Like anyone else, he just wanted to feel seen, loved, valued. And most of all, he just didn't want to be alone anymore. He wanted to feel special to someone. He brushed those thoughts aside. They didn't really matter anymore. Well, not today. He used to have a partner, Janet. He missed being with her. For a while, when he closed his eyes and he saw the images of their time together in his mind, he looked happy, loved. He felt happy and loved. He wondered how much of his memory was just him remembering what he wanted to remember. Selective memory would be a blessing in this brutish world. Now, he has to deal with the fact that she had been pulling away from him just to hurt him, just to watch him squirm. And worse, she seemed to be enjoying watching the anguish it caused him. Has she enjoyed watching him swallow his feelings and bury them? For a moment, he thought he had been living in a dream, but dreams have a nasty habit of going bad when you're not looking. She never laid a hand on him, but that doesn't mean that her words didn't leave cuts, bruises, and scrapes on him. Sometimes, it was easier to heal from a cut or a scrape than it was to heal from finding out what someone you loved really thought about you. That they see you the same way they'd see an empty, crumpled up packet of cigarettes on the ground. Finding out that the person you loved might actually enjoy your torment and causing you pain. But now, she's decided to go and start a vampiric ritual that will be ending the world. And now, he has to try to stop her. Breakups are nasty enough without having to deal with supernatural threats that could end the world. Demons and the supernatural are one thing, and James could handle that. Love, on the other hand. But since when does life ask you if it's a good time to shit on you? He'd be driving all day and all night. Fortunately, If he kept himself on this cocktail of pills, he could go weeks without sleeping, even longer without feeling. The Sonoran Desert here seemed to be on loop, playing over and over again, reality on repeat, unable to tell where one loop started and ended. Just a monotony of landscape, slowly moving off in the horizon. He was driving to an unremarkable little motel outside of El Paso. They had stayed there once when things were better, during a happier time, when he was a little younger, and she was still an eternal vampire, hundreds of years older than he is. He needed to find her before she could complete her vampiric ritual, and she touched the other world, the void. And if she did, it'd be the end of this world. He had to reach her and stop her anger, her bitterness and loneliness from poisoning this world the way it poisoned her. This world wasn't innocent, but it didn't deserve to go out like this. He thought to himself that he didn't want to do this as he loaded his guns. As surely as the bullet rips through the victim's flesh, organ, and bones, it shatters the image of the man who pressed the trigger. Janet Drake has spent these last years with James. If that was happy or not depended on the day and who you asked. Janet wasn't like most other women. No one would look at her and think that she needed fixing. She dressed elegantly, was knowledgeable, confident, and strong. At a glance, it didn't seem like she needed very much from James, but she was more than happy to rest her cold head on his shoulder. James would never tell her that she was a monster, but rather a supernatural human, and humans make mistakes. Janet was from a different time. Long ago, she had lost most of her family to typhoid during the Victoria era. She somehow survived all that, and eventually was turned into a vampire. Her name changed and gotten distorted with the centuries, from Dracula to Draculae to Drake. It'd been long enough that even her gender in her own legend had been changed. At first, things were great with James, but time had done a number on her. No one can make it through centuries and not get jaded, not grow more and more callous to humans and their affairs. And so she would grow more and more bitter and angry as the centuries wore on. You see, everything was fine with James until it wasn't. James was a kind and empathetic man. He listened and tried, as best as he could anyway. When she was in one of her moods, he'd say things like, "What do you need from me right now? We can work on it together." He had hope that she was at least as happy as he was on that one good day. In his mind, he kept replaying that one good day he had with her, telling himself it was all worth it because of this one good day. His relationship with Janet had begun at the Ferris wheel. On that day, he felt valued, loved, seen. For once, he was not alone. Janet had made him feel special and loved, feeling the way he should have always felt. But he knew this couldn't last. The world was too cruel and unfair. He wonders how his life would have played out if fate had been a little kinder to him. But abuse in a relationship doesn't care how you look, what gender or sex you are, or how you see yourself as. Anyone, big, rich, strong, privileged, or not, can be a victim. Over time, the relationship changed. The power was all in her hands. She had the money, the power, the sheer willpower to sit him down and tell him to wait as long as she wanted him to. Even if it was for days, he'd sit and wait because he'd grown afraid of her. James had grown afraid of Janet pulling away from him for days on end, neglecting him, not talking to him, not even telling him what he did wrong. Why was he being punished? Janet knew she had the power in the relationship, and she started enjoying it, frequently reminding James of this and his position. I don't know about angels, but it's fear that gives men wings. A relationship going bad might sound like a cliche, but nothing is a cliche when it happens to you. She would cut him off for days and not tell him why. So James was stuck in a world where he would try over and over again to do everything perfect, to be the best partner, to clean, cook, listen, support, love as best as he could, just so she wouldn't ignore him. Sure, he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. Who didn't in a relationship? But he tried to be there for her, tried to be empathetic to her needs, so that maybe it could be like the one good day again. But it never was. He never felt safe, loved, or comfortable with her again. She always kept him on his toes and aware that he could be nothing to her. She would torture him by taking away what he wanted the most, the recognition that he was a good person that deserved to be loved. He would do everything he could to not make her angry, not make her pull away, and yet she would, and never tell him why. Never tell him why she was making him suffer and feel all alone in this world. Why wouldn't she tell him so he could never do it again? And then she decided to commune with the void and to end the world. And then in the old run-down broken motel where they had stayed once long ago, a lifetime away when they were happy together, he watched the sunset one last time. He knew this would be a one-way trip to the void. He wouldn't be surviving this, but he may still save the world. He loaded his guns into the car. Driving, he watched the stars come out, laden with foreboding. He had the best seats in the house to his own personal nightmare. Front row and center. Guns in hand, he enters the motel and starts gunning his way down.
Birth year, 1991. Blood type. O negative. Your father's last words. I'm done. When did you know that you loved each other to drink? Ferris wheel. Why are you here? Ferris wheel. We were on a Ferris wheel. It had been a really good day. And as we rose to the top, she put her head on my shoulder and closed her eyes and whispered to herself, I forgot living could be a good thing. And that was it. This one good day burned into my head, and I gave her my soul. And I remembered it. I remembered it when she started lying to me and controlling me. I didn't have any money when we traveled. Everything was hers. I existed by her graces. And that was good because she loved me. And I was special, and I remembered. My good day. I remembered when she started reveling in me being a little bit afraid of her all of the time. I remembered when she put me on that fucking couch and told me to stay, and I did. I pissed myself, and I waited for 4 days, scared of what would happen if I got up and she found out. Proud of myself for showing that I could stay. 4 days of waiting and blinking and feeling the inside of my mouth dry and crack like poured cement. Until she came back, covered in blood. I didn't believe her when she told me she'd stopped feeding. I'd seen bloodstains washing clothes. But there she was, standing in the doorway, finally telling me the truth about what she wanted to be. Her first words to me and the last words I've heard her say for 2 years were, good boy. And the same sick part of me that felt like it was tearing in half when I left her was glad. Glad I stayed. Like the good boy I am. And that she saw me. I drove away as fast as I could, weeping in a car that didn't belong to me. Still remembering that one good fucking day. And as much as I want to hate her for what she did to me, without laying a finger on me. And what I did to myself, I can't. Because it was a really good fucking day. And her words were warm and her head was cold, and I don't know if I'm ever going to make someone feel like they are good. Like that. Ever again. Good. You're ready to die. It's been nice knowing you, Savage. I can't say I share your opinion. I think I saw a werewolf in that fucking bathroom.
To stop Dracula, James will have to take the elevator in the motel all the way down to the bottom. He felt like someone in a free fall, just patiently waiting to slam against the ground. The void, the power beyond, is drawing on Janet's memories to construct these realms. At first, James had to make his way through the void's interpretations of the motel. Further down, the void will pull graveyards from Janet's memories, the place where Janet finally opened up and confessed her true vampiric nature to James. The void would also conjure up castle environments, calling back to Janet's home and castle in Transylvania. Towards the bottom, the rhyme and reason of the void would start to break down. We see ancient Egyptian motifs, which call back to the birth of vampires in the ancient world. Victoria-era architecture and furniture. Lastly, scenes from a meatpacking factory, which just confused James, since it didn't seem to pull from any memory Janet had. All these different architectural styles started mixing together with no rhyme or reason. All these started to blend together in one big, uncoordinated collage of architecture. Closer to the bottom, he would see that the void started to get rattled and get shaken up as he progressed closer and closer to Janet. The environments started to fuse and get mixed up, putting motel rooms next to ancient pyramids and medieval castles, Victoria-era rooms next to meat factory equipment. The void was getting confused and chaotic. He must be getting close to Janet and the ritual. And during all this, he'd fight his way past mummies, werewolves, biblically accurate angels, bloody brides, burnt men, and more. Using his trusty weapons, he'd keep pulling the trigger until there wasn't any more ammunition left in the void. Towards the bottom, meat sacks and flesh columns would start appearing. James had never seen anything like this before, and he took it as an indicator that he was approaching his final goal, as reality rotted around him. Something about that made him feel comfortable. Seems appropriate for the day that you'd have to descend into the void to stop your vampire girlfriend. During all this, James would have to confront his time with Janet, how their relationship played out, and what happened. He gradually realized that while this was the end, his time on Earth wasn't all bad. Janet didn't have to be the central theme of his story. He was his own person, his own story. And he needed to learn to love that. He was enough. He needed to learn to give himself the place he deserved. While Janet never treated him the way he deserved, he could still treat himself with empathy and compassion. He didn't need Janet to make him feel special anymore. And he didn't need Janet to have any more good days.
I had another good day, you know? When I got my 3-month chip, my sponsor, Pearl, took me out for ice cream. Like I was a kid. When we were in line, after ordering some frankly ill-advised flavor combinations, she held it out to me and she said, "Hey, if you lose this, we always have more." Then she let go and informed me that I'd be paying for the ice cream. That day meant everything. I don't know if you've ever been on a wagon, but falling off, it feels like tumbling down a well. There's just water and walls, worn completely smooth. It feels like you've lost the ability to be a different person again. So you go from 3 months between relapses to 2 days one day. And Pearl said that was okay. As long as I kept coming back for that chip again. Because they always had more. I remember the old heads who showed me how to handle a gun at a range I shouldn't have been at, telling me about werewolves in Vietnam, lighting a fire in me to search for the unbelievable. I'm thinking I had a lot of good days. For as long as I have left, I'm glad I can see them.
Finally, he'd reached the bottom. The only thing now was one last confrontation with his dear Janet. The illusion comes afterwards. When you ask, why me, and what if? When you look back, see the branches like a pruned bonsai tree, or like a forked lightning. If you had done something differently, it wouldn't be you. It would be someone else looking back, asking a different set of questions. He didn't need her anymore to have a good day. Maybe he could learn to see himself as special, as valuable, as someone that deserves to be happy without her. Maybe one day he could learn to value himself and make his days better. It's great to have companionship, but that has a limit. He never deserved nor earned the way that he was treated. James was a good person, and maybe he would have had a chance at happiness if things had played out in a different way. But there wasn't too much of a point spending too much time thinking about all that. Would it matter if he died here? If he died wounded on the ground next to his monster that he loved? Would these moments of transcendence matter if this was his last hour on Earth and all he had lived was wiped away like tears in the rain? Him and Janet were both on the ground, covered in blood from their wounds. They exchanged a few final words, filled with lament on how things played out. In different ways, this world had been cruel to both of them, and they hadn't handled it well. She took it out on James. James indulged his addictions. It's easy to look back and know what you did wrong. It's much harder to look forward and know what needs to be done. James looked at the vial of soul's blood that Janet had given him. Could he heal? Was he broken beyond repair? Is it possible that he would be able to mend his wounds and one day be happy by himself? Or was he too broken for that? Was he too far gone that there was no salvation left for him? Everyone deserves to be loved, to be part of something that makes them feel special and valued. You don't deserve to be ridiculed. You don't deserve to be bullied. I hope you are able to appreciate all the good things that you bring to the world and how you enrich the people around you. The world may not make you feel as valuable as you know you are, but I hope that you can find a way to make yourself feel that way. James needed to believe in something if he was going to keep living. He needed to believe that his actions served a purpose, even if it was a lie. I have to believe in a world outside my own mind. I have to believe that my actions still have meaning, even if I can't remember them. I have to believe that when my eyes close, the world's still there. Do I believe the world is still there? Is it still out there? Yeah, we all need mirrors to remind ourselves of who we are, and I'm no different. We all lie to ourselves to be happy. Why not lie to yourself that you're happy, that you can heal, and move past the pain and the scars? The world doesn't care if we lie to ourselves, so why not have lies of mercy on our weary souls? And with that, it was all over. The storm seemed to lose its frenzy. The ragged clouds gave way to the stars above. James was a bit closer to heaven. And with that ends my story recap of the game El Paso Elsewhere. I do appreciate your time to watch this video. Take the very best care of yourself that you can. I hope you are well. Until next time, later.